All right, he's been out of prison for just a few hours, and one of his first moves was to get back in front of a bank of microphones and declare he's not broken, he's empowered. The longtime ally of Donald Trump, an ex-White House strategist, gave a fiery speech at a New York City hotel this afternoon. Bannon served a 4-month sentence in Danbury, Connecticut, after being convicted of 2 counts of contempt of Congress. One for defying a subpoena in the January 6th investigation, and a second for refusing to provide documents related to his involvement in Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Bannon today blamed Democrats for locking him up.
Kamala Harris, the Biden regime, Merrick Garland, Nancy Pelosi weaponize the justice system in this country against their political opponents.
Earlier this morning, Bannon rejoined his right-wing media podcast, The War Room, and held nothing back.
The 4 months in federal prison not only didn't break me, it empowered me. I am more energized and more focused than I've ever been in my entire life. And I can see clearly, just like in 2016 and in 2020, exactly what's going on here and what we have to do to defeat it.
What we have to do to defeat it. All right, joining us now is NewsNation investigative correspondent Rich McHugh. Rich, if anybody thought 4 months in prison might mellow Steve Bannon, they were wrong.
No, exactly the opposite, Elizabeth. He was emboldened. He said it himself at the time in Danbury prison. Those 4 months strengthened him, gave him more focus. He came out fighting today in this press conference and on that War Room podcast earlier this morning. He basically said he was a prisoner, that he viewed this time in prison as a service that he did for his country. There were questions about whether he will be campaigning with Trump or whether he's spoken with President Trump. He said he wouldn't address that specifically. He wouldn't talk about the pride. He said he had spoken with Trump, but he wouldn't get into the specifics. There was a tense moment in there when people asked him about January 6th. There was one reporter asked about January 6th and his involvement in it. And I want to roll that tape.
You were teaching civics. You know, you're out of prison. I wonder if you're any reforms looking back on the last January 6th and the fact that you incited a mob that ended up resulting in police being injured. I just wonder if you reflected on that.
This is because Vice President Pence didn't handle it correctly. This is because Vice President Pence did not handle it correctly.
No change.
No, absolutely no change. For the simple reason is that we should have had a review as requested by the states for all 7 states at that time.
Now, he also said that he expects kind of more shenanigans, he says, from Democrats. That evidence of that is their hiring of Mark Elias, the election attorney, and expects a reprise of 2020. One thing I do want to note, Elizabeth, is that he is out of jail, out of prison right now, but he is due back in 6 weeks in New York State Court on felony charges of money laundering about the border. So he could be right back in prison, Elizabeth.
All right, and important to note, both the Trump and Harris campaigns have already hired, both sides, plenty of lawyers to watch these election results and litigate if they're unhappy with them. Rich McHugh. Right. Thank you. Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.